So it's not often that we touch on Vanguard much anymore, but with the start of a new season, the introduction of new weapons, I figure it's only right to take a look at the top 10 weapons we have as of right now to start season 3, but they're still grinding out the game. Today we're going to be examining some old familiar faces in the power rankings, while some may be newer introductions here and ones that we personally haven't mentioned too much here on the channel. For now though, as we go along, drop your thoughts below. Let me know your favorite weapon in Vanguard. As per normal with top 10 ranking videos, mainly the ones we also see in Warzone, by no means is this a definitive 1 to 10 list. And in fact, even the ordering won't really be so much of an issue, simply because when you look at it, these can situationally differ. But if you find anything not on this list that you feel should be, chances are it's absolutely still viable. Vanguard's weapon balance and TTK make for a unique situation where most any weapon can be viable, if not fully competitive in traditional public matches. So feel free to drop your thoughts below. If you enjoyed the video, you find it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it, and if you're new to the channel, do be sure that subscribe button is to with all things Season 3, Warzone, Modern Warfare 2 here in the near future, and any and everything relating to Call of Duty. If you'd like to stay informed and join us on the road to 500,000 subscribers, I'd love to have you. And finally, if you ever want to pick up the Season 3 Battle Pass or any other content in the in-game shop this season and would like to support the channel a little further, using creator code Espresso is a great yet entirely optional way to do so. Do not ever feel pressured to, seriously, but if you do, tweet me a picture. I'd love to shout out some of your generous support in upcoming videos. That said, let's jump into it. So firstly, some kind of ground rules. Once again, by no means is this a definitive 1 to 10 list. One thing that is always such a different component when compiling these lists for things like MP versus Warzone top 10s is fundamentally the TTK and health is way faster to kill here in MP, whereas the average meta TTK in, say, Warzone is probably like 600 to 800 milliseconds. The TTK though in MP, I'd wager, is probably around that average 400 millisecond mark. So what we prioritize here is ease of use and the factors of damage, recoil control, mobility, as well as overall weapon versatility. Multiplayer maps are predominantly much more close quarters than the fields of Caldera, so if you're a rifle player, you want something that can get the job done in medium and close range. Same thing goes with SMGs. You'll want a little bit more distance perhaps on that to cover that ground if you're not right up on top of a player. But some of these builds may differ from what we've talked about before, others maybe not so much, but weapon selection is based upon those factors. So let's start out with ones that to me I think are the by and far best weapons to use in terms of overall use. Number 1, I've stood by it since day 1 almost here within Vanguard MP. I still think probably the easiest to use and best rifle to use is the Automaton. Now this, of course, you have your 2-shot bar and other weapons like that. The Cooper is pretty solid as well, but the Automaton is a weapon that just has zero recoil and is insanely easy to use, plus has a 75 round magazine that you can equip, meaning that between that and your reserve ammo, if you have fully loaded, you have 500 rounds to work with per life before you have to pop a scavenger pack or an ammo box or anything like that. So it very much so affords you a lot of different areas of play that you don't have to really worry about if you plan on staying alive for quite some time. And did I mention it has almost zero recoil? So all in all, it's just an insanely easy to use weapon, but you want to use the F8 stabilizer Anastasia sniper barrel. I personally like the slate reflector. You can put on any optic you'd like. The Anastasia padded, tight grip, fully loaded, the polymer grip, the Sakura 75 round magazine, lengthened, and the hand stop. Now, the 75 round magazine may be overkill for some people. I mean, if you watch the Pro League, they end up using just the standard default magazine, and it's more than enough to get the job done, but I mean, when in Rome, right? If I can go on a 10 streak without having to reload, I'm gonna do it. Next, the MP40 I still think is that all-around great SMG that if you're a seasoned veteran or a brand new player, you can pick up the MP40 and do well with it. From mobility to damage potential, you cover basically all the bases that you want with an SMG. Sure, there may be situationally better SMGs out there, but overall play and experience, MP40 I still think is the way to go. For this, I'd recommend the F8 stabilizer, the 317mm barrel, the slate reflector, the folding stock, steady as our proficiency. In the past with Warzone, we've used unmarked, but you don't necessarily need silent footsteps after kills in MP, so much as the benefits that it grants you in Warzone. Then fully loaded, I'll run as the kit, though quick is absolutely something that I'll go off and on with. The leather grip for a little bit more of that ADS speed. You want a snappy nature of this build. The 8mm 32 round magazine for that extra damage, lengthened, and then the pistol grip for additional sprint to fire speed and some hip fire accuracy. After that though, this is where I want to talk about the new weapon of the Nikita AVT. Now the Nikita is what is described as that fastest firing assault rifle in class, and it definitely does hold up. What I like about this though is that if you kit it out properly, it is a weapon that will have that fast fire rate, but it's still very controllable, and to a kind of scary degree, if you ask me, where you might not have as much success at a distance, but medium range to close range, you're going to absolutely fry your enemies. For this, I ended up running the cord muzzle brake, the Kovalevskaya 546mm sniper barrel for that added damage and accuracy, plus bullet velocity and range, the slate reflector, that's just my go-to optic. I'd recommend either the Empress notch or for the Zach MS stock. It really comes down to which one you find more comfortable in your build. While making it much more stable, the Empress Notch will take you out a lot in that hip fire accuracy and sprint to fire and ADS speed, but it might be worth it depending on how you play. Personally, I'd run Perfectionist or Sleight of Hand as your proficiency. Fully Loaded is just my go-to preferred MP kit. I'd recommend the Fabric Grip for that additional ADS speed, the 45 round magazine of the 7.62 ammo. You don't really necessarily need the 30-06 rounds that add extra damage, plus with only 25 rounds per magazine, you might be hindering yourself more so than you help yourself. So for me, that 45 round magazine is definitely enough to get the job done in terms of damage retained, but also enough damage to take out multiple enemies. Lengthened, and then the hand stop. That new introduction, definitely surprising to me how much I liked it, but definitely going to keep playing around with this one. Probably finish it out, getting it atomic here in a little bit. After that, we're going to jump on over to the Cooper, a weapon that we've talked about plenty of times. I still think when we take a look at rifles that can duel as sort of that close to mid-range engagements, I still think that the Cooper is probably up there in my top 1 to 2 out of those role-specific rifles. For this, I ended up running the Cord muzzle brake, the Cooper custom 22-inch barrel, the Slate reflector, the Cooper custom padded, Vital as a proficiency, Fully Loaded, the polymer grip, the 30 carbine 45 round magazine for that extra added damage, lengthened, and then the hand stop. Seriously, this is one that you can absolutely just fly around the map and absolutely decimate your enemies with relative ease. It's kind of up there with the Automaton, though it has a little bit more kick in terms of that recoil, but still super powerful, easy to pick up whether you're a pro or a newer player, and do well with. Then we're going to talk about a busted weapon here for a second. The Whitley is the next weapon that I'm going to talk about. The Whitley introduced last season is one that is quite interesting to say the least. With its 2-shot potential and the ability to just be an absolute laser pointer of a weapon, the only real hindrances that it has is the fact that it is quite a slow weapon depending on how you build it out. For this, I'd highly recommend the G28 Compensator, the Gracie Mark 9 barrel. Now, for this, I take the Mark 9 barrel over the Ragdoll 20-inch just because they kind of do similar things. The Ragdoll adds bullet velocity and range plus accuracy while sacrificing hip fire accuracy and sprint to fire speed. But while you end up losing out on that ADS speed, which can be vital here with the Whitley and something that you want to retain, the Gracie Mark 9 has recoil control and accuracy, reduced scope sway and gun bob, and flinch resistance, which is absolutely something you want. Sometimes that flinch can be overbearing in a gunfight, so to mitigate that as much as possible, definitely nice. Then I'll run the Slate reflector and the Cooper adjustable to add a little bit more to that sprint to fire speed, giving us a little bit more faster ability to react in a gunfight, perhaps if we are caught sprinting with this out. Sleight of hand because you have a 150 round box mag, which we'll talk about in a second. Fully loaded just because there's not really any other kits that really stand out to me. The leather grip for ADS speed, whereas previously other builds I'd put like polymer grip or the stippled grip for some control there. The leather grip gives us that ADS speed, which we're trying to make up because that is such a large weapon. The 50 BMG 150 round box mag, this adds damage and then makes that 2-shot potential, and it is absolutely one of the integral parts here of this build. And again, with 150 rounds too, you're going to be able to take out enemies with absolute ease and in droves. Then I'd normally run hollow point, and then also, we don't do it often, but the skeletal underbarrel, because again, that adds more ADS speed here to it, offering a little bit more, whereas it's a very slow weapon at its base. But you try this out, and I definitely think you can absolutely shred with it. It might be a little bit different from some of the other builds out there, but this is what I found to work well for me in most gameplay situations. After that, we're going to continue on with the 2-shot mentality here and talk a little bit about the bar. We've talked about the bar from day one, and to me, it was one of those weapons that I picked up immediately, and I was like, this is going to be one of those ones that dominates, and even still, 5-6 months later, it definitely still does. For the bar, I'd end up running the Cord muzzle brake, 27-inch 2B barrel for that added damage range, but also again, accuracy and reduced scope sway, while not sacrificing ADS speed. Again, we kind of have this debacle of going back and forth because the 30XL offers flinch resistance but takes away ADS speed, so those two kind of interchangeable. Depends on what you want to build out the rest of the weapon with and how much you prioritize that ADS speed. I end up running the Slate reflector, the Chariot WR stock for added stability and control, hard scope again for more control, accuracy, and recoil during sustained ADS. Fully loaded, the polymer grip, the 50 BMG 30 round magazine, because again, that is what you want here for that 2-shot potential, lengthened, and then the hand stop for that added recoil control and accuracy. After that, we're going to jump over to another rifle here, one that is pretty much a pick up and play weapon, as we've talked about with a couple of the other ones, that being the STG. Now, I know this was the go-to for quite some time for so many people here at the very beginning of the game, likely because it was something that was one of their first weapons they had leveled up. We had early access to this in Warzone, and it is absolutely a fantastic weapon, but again, it's more of a versatile weapon. It's not one that I would take in many situations where I want the fastest killing potential, but instead, it's something that I'd want to take in either if I'm transitioning from close to mid-range or something like that. Very easy to pick up and use, but this I'd end up running the F8 stabilizer, the 760mm barrel, the slate reflector, the folding stock, so you can end up getting a little bit more sprint to fire and movement speed out of it. Vital as proficiency, fully loaded, the polymer grip, the 30 Russian short 30 mags, lengthened, and the Carver foregrip or the hand stop. Depends on really which one you... For me, I kind of like the Carver. I don't feel like the ADS is too terrible with this, but it also adds a little bit more in that recoil control, so that's something that I'd take here as well. Outside of that, one of my favorites that is kind of the unsung hero, I would say, out of the rifle play in Vanguard weaponry is that of the NZ41. Now, the NZ is a weapon that you might not think about because there are so many other great options. You have the Automaton, you have the Cooper, you have the Bar, but this is one that, again, is very easy to control, packs a punch, but is maybe a little bit different because we kit this out not to the max attachments, which is kind of a weird one, but we've talked about this here why before in the past, and we'll talk about it here in just a second. For this, if you've seen any of the builds, you'll remember this perhaps, the F8 stabilizer, the Orb Weaver 360mm barrel, the slate reflector, the Orb Weaver E-Pack stock, Frenzy as a proficiency for that health regeneration after kills, fully loaded, polymer grip, lengthened, and the Carver foregrip. Now, noticeably missing is any sort of magazine. That's because the magazine attachments here don't really work in your favor. You end up having 30 rounds default with the NZ, but there really is no extended mags that doesn't take away from damage, and that's something you want to keep up here with this. You have the 20 round fast mag, but again, you're taking yourself down from 30 to 20 rounds. You have a 30 round Clouser mag, which increases that fire rate, but takes then that damage down, and then you have the Sakura 45 round magazine, which again, sacrifices even more damage, but does give you more rounds to work with. So realistically for me, keeping that damage is really important, so 30 rounds is definitely fine. I wish there was an extended mag, but what are you gonna do? After that, the Wellgun is one that still absolutely holds up from its introduction in, what, Season 1 or something like that? This kind of up there with the MP40 is a very easy to pick up and use SMG, can challenge things at a medium distance, but may not necessarily be the preferred SMG because it does have some downsides, some upswings, but again, situationally based. For this, I'd end up recommending the recoil booster, the Shrouded Barrel, adding a little bit more in terms of that flinch resistance, while also adding control. The Slate Reflector, for me, I know that I talk about in Warzone, I use the GW03 optic. I kind of like the Slate Reflector in Vanguard for some reason. I don't know why, that's probably just a sort of placebo thing. The removed stock for added movement speed, sprint to fire speed, and ADS speed. Fleet, so you end up having a little bit more weapon swap quickness and movement speed. Fully loaded, the polymer grip. The Gorenko 48 round magazine, which increases the fire rate, so you're sacrificing a little bit in that damage, but it is something that makes up with it with that fire rate differential. Then frangible as that ammo type, and the pistol grip for additional sprint to fire and hip fire accuracy. Then finally, to round out this list of the top 10 weapons, I'd say that one that still holds up is the DP27. This being one that is rather interesting. The LMGs are kind of hit or miss here, I think, within Vanguard, but the DP absolutely can pack a punch and still is actually pretty manageable in terms of mobility and other things like that. For this, I end up running the G28 compensator, the Kovaleskaia 680mm barrel, the slate reflector, the Empress SK adjustable stock, fleet, fully loaded, the polymer grip, the 30-06 63 round pan mag. This adds more damage. I think that honestly you can get away with 63 rounds with relative ease. You don't need more, you don't need less, because while there is a 30-06 81 round pan mag, you end up losing more in that ADS speed, movement speed, fire rate, and other things like that. So adding damage, but kind of keeping yourself level a bit more when it comes to other attributes you don't want to sacrifice. And then finally, the Carver foregrip. And to me, that is the top 10 here in terms of Vanguard weaponry. One that I was kind of unsure on whenever we talk about these weapons though, and because we did mention the Nikita earlier on, one that I was unsure of was the new M1916, because on paper, it's a two-shot weapon that shreds, but if you're playing competent players who can shoot straight, sometimes that fire delay is a bit too slow between landing shots. The full auto modification with the right grips and everything like that you can end up equipping does make it easier to manage, but if you're not ranked up fully or whatever the case, sometimes it just isn't the best option for your top 10. But outside of that, I'd say what we talked about here, to me, are my preferred weapons here in Vanguard MP. So that's where we're going to wrap it up. I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of this list here? Is there anything you would add or subtract from this list? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. But if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing running all things Vanguard, all things Warzone, all things Season 3, and even Modern Warfare 2 content upcoming. So that said, if you guys are interested in any of that, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.